Cosmo and Wanda have come out of retirement yet again for a brand new Fairly OddParents show, A New Wish. When Nickelodeon started rolling out the marketing for the series, a lot of people made the astute observation that the main character isn't Timmy. In fact, for the first time ever in the franchise, the protagonist has no connection to Timmy whatsoever. It's not a live-action version of Timmy. It's not the cousins of a live-action version of Timmy. Why did they make this show? It's just a new kid who gets Cosmo and Wanda as their fairy godparents. And make no mistake, this is a sequel series. They make it very clear the events of the original series still took place. Timmy's just an adult now. But if you're like me, and were invested into the Fairly OddParents far longer than the later seasons deserved, then that begs the question, which Timmy are we even talking about? Because Nickelodeon milked this franchise to hell and back, we've seen plenty of outcomes for Timmy's future, some being way better than others. I mean, there's only one that fans like, but Timmy seems like he's chilling in all of them, so whatever. Now that A New Wish is premiering its first season, I thought it'd be nice to break down every timeline in the Fairly OddParents saga, deduce which one could be considered the prime timeline, and figure out which future A New Wish is set in, if it doesn't just reside in its own timeline. Although, I believe we do have a definitive answer. Kicking things off with Timeline A, we have the most beloved timeline, Channel Chasers. Timmy's impulsive decision to live in TV spirals into a high-stakes mission to stop Vicky from taking over the world, as both get their hands on magic TV remotes that can alter a channel's programming and thus reality itself. The only way Timmy can defeat Vicky is by aging himself up with the remote until he becomes the age he loses Cosmo and Wanda, causing the remotes to lose their magic. Through this plan, we discover that Timmy is going to have Cosmo and Wanda throughout his entire high school career, finally losing them at 18 years old when he heads off to college. He becomes a jock, which in hindsight is definitely meant to imply that he's become a bit more popular and has developed better social skills. I imagine that being on a sports team means he now has more than 2 friends who don't disappear halfway through the show. After graduating from college, Timmy seems to be working a normal office job, judging by his attire, which is just his dad's clothes with a pink tie. My guy is shredded! He seems to have taken over his parents' home. They probably retired and are on a cruise somewhere. And he has 2 children, Tammy and Tommy, who are tragically just as miserable as Timmy was in his childhood, having an evil babysitter of their own, a robot version of Vicky. It wouldn't surprise me if she was still very successful and very evil in this future, owning a massive babysitting company that produces these robo-Vickies en masse. Thankfully, Tammy and Tommy have also inherited Cosmo and Wanda, so although history is repeating itself, we know that they're getting the same kind of support Timmy once had. And if he was able to get his happy ending despite everything he went through, then odds are things are going to work out for them as well. But before we continue, big thanks to 1v1.lol for sponsoring today's video. 1v1.lol is a new free-to-play battle royale game for mobile devices that everyone is playing right now. What separates 1v1.lol from the rest is the game's awesome champions, sporting different powers and abilities that you can use to your advantage on the battlefield. Quick can evade bullets with his dash ability. Ryujin can snatch opponents with the Dragon Grasp. And there's the brand new champion, Fang, who has the power to transform into a swarm of bats, which makes traversing the map a breeze. And that's just scratching the surface. The game has so many more champions who are all eager to meet you. For a limited time, you can snag skins as some of the biggest YouTubers right now: Laserbeam, Clicks, and Slogo. So be sure to get them for free before they're gone. Mixing together the champions and building mechanics creates a really unique gaming experience. You won't be able to put this thing down. Building works great on mobile, and the lobby difficulty adjusts while you play, so you'll be evenly matched against other players. The game and the influencer skins are all free, so don't miss out. Download 1v1.lol by clicking the link in the description or download it in the App Store. Thank you 1v1.lol for sponsoring this video. Now I know it's supposed to be ambiguous if Tammy and Tommy's mother is Trixie or Tootie, but come on, it's definitely Tootie. I don't care that, ooh, Tammy has a pink headband that looks like Trixie's. It is so obvious that Timmy would end up with the girl that he never gave a chance during his childhood, instead of the queen bee who rejected him over and over. This is a Butch Hartman show. We've seen how things like this shake out through Danny Phantom. the live-action movies pair him up with Tootie? The answer has become a lot more obvious with time. Of course, we can't ignore that this timeline was altered from the original Darkest timeline, where Vicky became the supreme ruler of Earth, ruling it with an iron fist. The Timmy in this timeline infiltrated her forces and gained her trust, getting assigned to a mission that allowed him to travel back in time and aid his younger self under her nose. And then she killed him. I know this timeline got effectively erased, and Darkest timeline future Timmy still accomplished his mission, but Jesus, what a depressing life to live. Your babysitter tortures you for eternity, destroys the world around you, taking away everyone you know and love, and then, when you finally get a chance to experience happiness for the first time in decades, traveling around Cable itself with your younger self, you get killed by the person who ruined your life in the first place. Just a bit of a bummer. In a perfect world, the Channel Chasers timeline would be the only timeline, allowing Timmy's arc to end off on a high note. But sadly, Butch just couldn't help himself. In 2011, we got introduced to Timeline B with Timmy's secret wish. And it's, disturbing to say the least. Timmy achieving his 1,000,000th wish leads to Fairy World taking a closer look at all of his wishes, which ends up landing him on trial for being the worst god kid ever. The trial uncovers a secret wish that Timmy made a long time ago. And I mean a long time. Despite emotionally maturing in Channel Chasers, accepting that his time with Cosmo and Wanda is finite, but appreciating that he'll have them way longer than he expected, Timmy still ended up making an extremely selfish wish. He wished for everyone on the planet to stop aging, keeping him at 10 years old forever, so he'll never lose Cosmo and Wanda, and never have to take on more responsibility in life. So how long ago did he make that wish? 50 years?
You need to leave!
Meaning he effectively overwrote the Channel Chasers timeline because this little shit is technically 60 years old. If this wasn't messed up already, Father Time moves time forward, aging everyone up to where they should be, and the Council of Fairies intend to undo all of Timmy's wishes, which means Poof will no longer exist. This is horrifying, especially on an existential level. Everyone in Timmy's life, and even people who didn't know this kid, were unknowingly suspended in time, unable to make any meaningful progress in life. If I was stuck in grade school for 50 years because of this emotionally stunted emotional terrorist, I'd be ready to break those stupid buck teeth. Ultimately, time is reversed to a point before Timmy made this rather unhinged wish, erasing this crazy-ass timeline from existence. But, you know, Timmy, Cosmo, and Wanda still remember it happened. Switching mediums and parting ways with the buck teeth because they were cowards, we have Timeline C, the grow-up Timmy Turner timeline that's explored throughout a made-for-TV movie trilogy. Timmy's a man-child. Full stop. He's 23 years old and he's only made it to 5th grade. This dude didn't need to stop time to evade responsibility or the trials and tribulations of adulthood. Because of this, he still has his fairies. I'm gonna be real, even as a kid, it was hard for me to view this version of Timmy as anything other than sad. I get that's the point, but like, it totally discouraged me from being invested in these movies. I loved Fairly OddParents. I loved Drake and Josh. I loved cartoony-ass sitcoms like Ned's Declassified. And yet, I just didn't care about these movies. I was totally checked out. So when I eventually found out how this timeline unfolds, I was shocked. Despite ending up with Tootie and finally defeating the likes of Mr. Crocker and Foop, Timmy dies. He falls into a volcano while holding onto Abracadabrium, a magic material that's the source of the Big Wand's power. And this rock reincarnates him as a fairy. Wanda believes that he absorbed the magic from the Abracadabrium, but like, his human body still had to perish on to become this, right? Now that he's a fairy, he gets assigned a job in Fairy World, and Cosmo and Wanda move on to new kids, but they still get to enjoy each other's company. Tootie also continues dating Timmy, even though he's perpetually stuck as a miniature version of his 10-year-old self, so that feels a little awkward to me. Timmy doesn't seem all two-faced by this outcome, but I'm kinda mortified. Aside from the Channel Chasers timeline, every timeline is an absolute mindfuck with really twisted circumstances. Well, except for Timeline D. The Fairly Odder timeline. Yep, this one's just boring. Like the Channel Changers timeline, the Fairly Odder timeline sees Timmy part ways to Cosmo and Wanda as he heads off to college. But unlike that timeline, I don't think Timmy loses his memory of fairy godparents at all, because he hands them off to his cousin Viv. Alright then, heaven forbid this franchise honors his own rules. Kinda sucks Cosmo and Wanda are just locked into the Turner family on Timmy's whim, instead of being assigned to a kid who's genuinely struggling and in need of fairies, but oh well. This timeline sucks. Timmy has no sauce. Vicky's in love with Mr. Crocker for some reason. This show got canceled after one season, let's just move on. All these timeline shenanigans brings us to a new wish and Hazel Wells, Cosmo and Wanda's new god kid. Is this its own timeline? A timeline-y, if you will. Or can this fit into any of the other continuities? Well, the show has straight up shown images from the original series in the pilot, referring to events from those glory days, and we have characters like Dev Dimmadome, who's the son of Doug Dimmadome, owner of the Dinsdale Dimmadome, and of course the son of Dale. You know, the kid who worked in Vicky's lemonade sweatshop. His life ended up getting a little bit better. Love to see it. So this is definitely taking place in a timeline similar to the end of Channel Chasers. It does get a little bit confusing as Cosmo and Wanda have been in retirement for 10,000 years before meeting Hazel, but I think we can just chalk that up to time moving differently in Fairy World compared to Earth. Or they were just straight up time traveling. That works too, I guess. Of course, the internet has been all over that quick cameo from a character who has Timmy's adult design from season 1 when he wished to be an adult. But according to executive producer and writer on the new series, Lindsay Katai, it was just an Easter egg, a nod to Timmy. Which I know may sound even more confusing, but this show loves shoving in characters that look like Timmy, so it honestly tracks. Furthermore, she clarifies that the Channel Chasers timeline remains intact. Now, it's been confirmed Timmy won't be showing up in the first season of A New Wish, but if someone who helped bring this new show to life directly acknowledges that the Channel Changers timeline is intact, then I'm inclined to believe that's indeed the timeline this show is set in, also making it the prime timeline in my eyes. As for why Hazel has Cosmo and Wanda instead of Tammy and Tommy, I think she simply had them first, and maybe she won't need them as long as Timmy did, meaning that final scene in Channel Chasers just hasn't happened yet. This show is a lot more serialized than the original series, but it also seems to hold that original run in high regard. So I wouldn't be surprised if an ending for this show did involve Tammy and Tommy inheriting Cosmo and Wanda from Hazel, allowing the show to fall perfectly in place with the original series, and everyone's a happy camper. Except racist. But there you have it, every timeline we have in Fairly OddParents. For now, knowing Nickelodeon, there will be 4 more in another 10 years. For now though, which timeline do you think is the wildest? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and keep the conversation going over at Awestruck Vox and at Roundtable Vids on Instagram and Twitter. If you enjoyed this video, please throw it a like and subscribe to the Roundtable for more great cartoon content. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have an awesome day. Peace!